Good evening, everyone. Time for episode 31 of The Drums of Doom, part 2 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga by me. We're going to start on page 391. We're in the chapter entitled Rangers Lead the Way, 29th of October 2020. Tarek Longstride has just succeeded in rescuing Carmen from the trolls' wretched lair. Okay, we'll read a little bit that we read at the end of the last episode again. Flame still warns us, Tarek said. We must be on our guard. Walking close beside Carmen, he placed his hand upon her shoulder. I thought that we had lost you. My helm kept me from drowning, but I couldn't free my hands or my sword. Without fire, I knew that I was going to die. It was my faith in you that gave me the courage to play dead. Walking together, no more words passed between them for some time. She was alert, but her mind was fast considering the 1,000 emotions that were sweeping through her heart like a whirlwind. Her sisters had often spoken of love, a luxury that she believed would never be hers. It was completely impossible, but it had happened just the same. She had a hero. Down and down, deep beneath the river's edge, in a small, smoke-filled cave beneath a boulder that weighed over 200 pounds, something stirred. Concealing their light, they traveled on, moving ahead as quietly as possible. With Kerr again in the lead, they followed him with no more than 5 paces between them. Tarek had found more animal signs, and he believed that the pigs had fled down this same passage. The tunnel was tall, yet too narrow to travel 2 abreast. Nearly a half-mile from the troll's lair, they came to an intersection. The main passage continued south, and a cool breeze drifted past them. To the west, the sound of rushing water could be heard, and to the east the tunnel widened. Kerr examined the stone lining the walls of the east tunnel, and much of it was cracked, jagged, and unstable. Best not to go that way, he said. Could cave in at any time. Kalor, Carmen whispered. The river sounds close. Check it out, but don't go too far. Stealthily, he padded toward the sound of the falls. Less than 80 feet ahead, the path entered into a small cave and then ended abruptly beside a wide rift in the ground. Creeping to the edge, he peered over it. A torrent of water rushed by at least 30 feet below him, and the chasm itself was over 15 feet across. The remains of a wooden bridge could be seen dangling from the opposite side. It appeared as if the cliff wall in front of him had eroded and fallen down, taking the footings and the bridge with it. Heading back, he told them what he had seen. Test the gem again, Carmen said. Let's make sure that we're still on the right path. When he encountered the words, the gem continued to pull ever southward. Press on, she said. Kerr, the lead is yours. The twisting tunnel came to an end at the northern edge of a vast cavern network. The first cave was bean-shaped, over 200 feet across, and filled with mushrooms over 4 feet tall, many of them glowing fluorescent shades of green and blue and rose. Wild pigs wallowed here and there, feeding hungrily upon thick clusters of fungi. Tarek's swift arrow took a small bore before the herd fled deeper into the caves. Fanning out, they searched the cave well, and those adjoining it, but besides the pigs, they seemed to be alone. Make camp, Carmen commanded. Let's make the best of it. Leander helped Tarek butcher the pig, and with the help of Flame, they prepared the older meat first and once again had a great feast. After they had eaten, Kerr and Tarek explored further into the next cave. Tarek worried over a pair of small footprints that he discovered there. I have never seen such prints before, he said. They look just like ours do, only they are no bigger than a child's of 3 seasons. Maybe there are gnomes down here, Kerr considered. Perhaps it is a set of children's feet. Look here, this little stream of water passing through the rock. Its water is saltier than the sea, and minerals must have built up all along the banks of it. My body has screamed for salt for days, Tarek said. In the ogre fangs, it is worth more than gold or silver. Then we are rich, Kerr replied, and if we work hard, we should be able to scrape a few pounds of it off of these rocks. No wonder the pigs like it here, Tarek said while laboring with the back of his knife. They have everything that they need, food, water, and shelter. In no time, they had several pounds of salt collected. It's excellent, he exclaimed, licking his fingers clean. I have been thinking about those tracks, Kerr said. Gnomes may hunt here, but there are other small races of Under-Earth. We should beware. You mean like the Darg? Only in their evil. My father once told me a tale of tiny murderers that he called the Green Ear. They once killed 50 miners beneath the volcano before their lair was found. Now I'll never sleep. Come, Ranger, let us see if the wizards have identified the treasure. By the time they had salted and packed the remaining meat, Kalor had identified the magical contents of the chest. The vials are indeed potions, Kalor reported. One will heal, and the other will allow the drinker to climb any wall like a spider. The scroll was written by an ancient priest. Its verse will protect the reader from the dead. It's a little late, don't you think, dear? Karina said, smirking. Yes, of course, Dow agreed, smiling back. But the last 2 items are even more mysterious. The wand is full of unpredictable magic. The symbols upon it are from every school of magic, evocation, summoning, necromancy, divination, and more. Uttering its command word might help the magician or harm him. It might summon a tiger to battle or an earthquake. There is no way to be sure. There is no way to know for sure what might happen. And what of the ring? Leander asked. None of the items in the chest were fashioned by the trolls. Of that I am sure. But the stone upon this ring is filled with their blood. Whoever wears it should quickly heal any wound that is not caused by acid or fire. Oh, do let me borrow it, Kerr begged. I feel as though I have been run over by a herd of stone worms. What are these worms that you speak of? Karina asked. They thrive near the planet core, Kerr said. Baldric once tried to journey to the center of Tempest, but he never made it. The heart of the world is a vast sea of molten rock. The stone around that sea is soft with the heat. Baldric endured the heat until he could go no further, and it was there that he saw the lava sea through the mouth of a deep chasm. His food and water were gone, and he knew that he would never make it home. So he just sat there at the edge and pondered, waiting for death to claim him. Before the day had passed, a mysterious creature emerged from the stone, red-shelled, 6 feet in length and 6 inches thick. It had 100 little feet like paddles, and a wide circular mouth filled with diamonds. Crunching a hole in the stone, it soon disappeared. Baldric believed that he had imagined it, but before long another appeared, and then another. Ravenously hungry, he hewed off the head of the next animal that appeared, and cooked its meat in the superheated steam that rose through the vent. When Baldric had eaten enough to recover his strength, he attempted to make the journey home. According to legend, the creatures taste foul, like burned meat. So goes the tale of Baldric and the stoneworms. He obviously made it back, Leander surmised, or else there would have been no one left to tell the tale. It is also said that his axe has been passed down from generation to generation to young dwarves who still bear his blood. Was Kerr's axe the same? They pondered, but dared not to ask. Tarek should bear the ring, Karina declared. If not for his sword and his courage, we would all be troll food. And Dartin must carry the scroll, Leander said, although his power has returned. He can still keep it safe, Carmen said, nodding. in case the runes should fail. And what of the wand, Dao said. I believe that it is too unpredictable to use. Sounds just like you, Kalo, Karina noted, laughing. Random magic for a wild heart. Save it for dark times, Da said, when nothing else will avail you. The potions, then, Kalor said. Perhaps you should carry the healing draught, Kerr. I accept. And the climbing potion? Give it to Karina, Carmen said. I don't know why, but I feel that she may need it sometime soon. And it was hers. Darton healed them while they rested, and Tarek told them of the tracks that he had found. We'll set a double watch tonight, Carmen ordered, just in case. They slept and they guarded, but no greater dangers did they face than their own haunted dreams. Despite beds of stone, they awoke refreshed and with merry hearts. There is nothing like a full belly, Leander declared smilingly, to lighten the spirits. Let's just hope, Dartin said, that the rest of the day is as kind to us. Time to get moving, Carmen said. This place worries me. Traveling on in a loose formation, the cavern maze led off in many directions, but always the gem led them to the south. Around noon they entered a cave with a vaulted ceiling and stalactites that dangled from the roof to the floor. The rocky tendrils created a maze that was difficult to navigate, and no clear path could be found through them. Stay close, Kerr urged, and don't get lost. Tarek walked close behind him, and then Carmen and Dao, and at times the dwarf would disappear from view around this column or the next, and then reappear when the next man in line turned the corner. Somehow he seemed to hold his direction, a skill that Tarek had learned well in the land above, beneath the sun and the stars. But here, so far from the light, he was little more prepared than the rest of them. When they were fully immersed within the maze, disaster struck. A hole opened up beneath Kerr's feet, barely wider than his shoulders, and he fell with a shout. Tarek stood over it and saw Kerr some 10 feet below. Several small creatures, like little goblins, suddenly attacked him from all sides, striking him on the head with heavy little sacks. If he leaped down to help, he wouldn't be able to bend forward or engage them in any way. Carmen, come quickly and bring your bow. What's going on? Karina shouted from the rear. Hold your position, Tarek warned. There are traps in the floor. Carmen bent over the hole, aimed and fired, killing one of them. Kerr's feet were slowly disappearing as the creatures began dragging him down a side passage. Bring Kalor up with his rope, Tarek said. I'm going down there. It's too narrow, Carmen observed. You won't be able to fight. It's okay, Kalor said. I'll do it. Preparing his rope, he commanded reach and hold, and it coiled around the nearest pillar. Dropping its end down into the hole, he placed his dagger in his teeth and descended. 15 feet down, a series of tunnels branched away from it. A tiny little misshapen man lay dead at his feet. About half his size, naked and oddly proportioned, he still clutched a small knife in one hand and a little sack filled with rocks in the other. Sensing eyes upon his back, he spun. A little man waited in hiding behind him, charging him with its sack. Kalor took his knife from his teeth and stabbed it through the neck. It dropped dead. Looking quickly down each tunnel, he didn't see any more of them. Their disturbing giggles were growing fainter as they dragged Kerr farther into the maze. He could be attacked from any angle at any time. It was their home, and they knew its secrets. All that he knew was that his friend was being dragged away to his death. With a few words, he became invisible. Sheathing his dagger, he crept ahead quietly. Passing by several of the creatures, he stayed with the kidnappers. Soon the giggling levels rose, and the little tunnel ended in a small room no more than 10 feet across with a ceiling of 3 feet in height. Kerr was sprawled out on his stomach, with a dozen of the little gremlins stripping off his clothing and his armor. Whenever he would begin to wake, they sapped him again, which brought about still more rounds of sinister laughing. Anger was a rare emotion among gnomes, but at that moment he was very angry indeed. He would have to kill them all before the other ones got there, or else he and Kerr would be finished. With a word, the giggling stopped and he appeared. 4 bolts of light flashed from his hands and 4 of the green ear fell. His hand drew a dagger coiled and through, taking another in the chest, but it lodged too deeply and would not return. Drawing his sword, his surprise was spent and they rushed him. To the green ear, he was like an ogre, an unusual feeling for a gnome, but he used his advantage, laying all about himself with his blade. He eviscerated the first, taking a cut on the arm. The second latched onto his sword arm and he punched it in the face with his left. Another one jumped on him, trying to bite down on his neck. Heaving mightily, he rose up hard and smashed it against the ceiling. Cutting right, he killed the one with the bloody nose. Grabbing the one on his back by the neck, he hurled it down and stabbed it through the heart. The other 4 kept coming, screaming savagely to alert their brethren. Stepping forward, he thrust with the perfect form of a fencing master, and the little murderer was skewered. Its momentum carried it to the hilt, and the other 3 bore him down. Punching him and stabbing at him, he was pierced in the shoulder, his mouth was torn, and he was kicked in the groin. His sword was trapped inside of a body, and he could not free it. Letting go, he punched and he kicked until he was again on his feet, and another one was down. The 2 remaining green ear wanted no more of him, and they turned to flee out of one side of the tunnels. Having none of it, he wrenched his sword free and chased after them. The first one lost its legs at the knee and fell screaming. The second one would have escaped if Kerr's massive hand had not wrapped around its ankle in a death grip. Falling on its face, it tried to kick free, turned, and swung its knife at him. Kerr caught it by the wrist, snapping its arm bones in one violent twist. Rising to his knees, he stretched it out between his arms like a sack of flour. Lifting it up, he then brought it down hard over his knee. Its spine snapped and it went limp. "I hate these things," he said. Kalor retrieved his sword and dagger in haste and dispatched one of the gremlins that still stirred. "Get dressed quickly. The other ones will be on us any second." Guarding the main passage, he hid beside it, waiting for the first of them to come through. 2 green ear ran straight on at Kerr, not knowing that Kalor was among them. He killed the first, and Kerr ended the second with his axe. A few more were in the passage, but fled when they realized that they faced not one opponent, but 2. "Let's get out of here, laddie," Kerr urged. "There could be hundreds of them down here." Kalor slunk, but Kerr had to crawl. There were tense moments when the green air would threaten attack and then retreat, but win their escape they did. Kerr climbing out first, and then Kalor, who was showered with rocks by the evil things before he made it. Carmen sent a few arrows down the hole to quiet them, and such was its power that the shaft began to cave in, and the gremlins fled. "We'll have to prod our way out of here," Kerr said. "Don't take a step unless you know that the ground under your feet is solid." It took over an hour to escape the cave, and the green ears giggling could often be heard from around one corner or the next. The exit tunnel was wide, and when they had finally escaped, they could all feel it, as if some evil pall had been lifted. "You have my thanks, Kalor. You did me proud," Kerr praised. "The laddie killed 12 with magic, his fists, and his blade." "What the hell were those things?" Karina asked. "They were the green ear, all right," Kerr said. "The blight of Under-Earth. You would call them gremlins." "Let's put some distance between us," Carmen pleaded. "I pray that we never meet again, unless it is to end them." "That's the problem," Kerr said. "You can't get to them, and if you try, sure you might kill a few, but you will never get them all." The tunnel wound on, at times sloping upward and at others steeply down. A great chasm followed it on the left side for nearly a mile and then ended abruptly. Further on, another sloping passage joined it from the northeast, and then the tunnel widened still more until it ended in a large cave. A stagnant pool filled the east half of the cavern, and at its most extreme southwestern corner, a thick oaken door, bound in iron, blocked their passage. Evidence of a pitched battle lay strewn about the cave. A broken crossbow bolt lay upon the floor, its arrowhead missing. Near the pond, a severed hand rested beside a broken sword, and the walls were scorched black, as if fire had swept through it. "It's a goblin hand," Tarek said. "I would recognize their green flesh anywhere." "But where are the bodies?" Kalo questioned. "Many must have died here. Someone must have taken them away." "Do goblins lie beyond that door, then?" Karina asked. "Perhaps they have the next piece of the staff." "Somehow I think that we're soon to find out." "Try the gem again," Carmen said. "Let's be sure." Kalo's hand was then pulled, irrefutably toward the door and beyond. "Check it out," Carmen directed, but quietly. "The door was recently built," Kalo said. "There are piles of stone dust on the floor where the bolt holes were drilled, and the timbers are still wet with sap." "Goblins could have built it," Kerr considered. "Their mining is fair, but this work seems too fine for them." "It is both locked," Kalo observed, "and magically held. No goblins did that." "Then work your magic, Tao," Carmen said, "and may the gods be with us." Standing before the door, Tao summoned his power and began removing the warding symbols guarding it. The other wizard was skilled and far more experienced than he was, but overall it was a simple spell, and the technique of countering it was always the same. It required all his strength, but when he was finished the door's magic was broken and its lock tumbled. Covered in sweat, he breathed a sigh of relief. "The wizard who barred this door was strong," Tao stated. "I don't know if I could defeat him." "That's what friends are for," Kerr said. "You are not alone." "Then dare we enter?" Karina asked. "The time for stealth has come," Carmen said. "Kalor, you said that you could become invisible." "I can only use that spell once more without resting. Now is the time, and Tarek will follow you with his chameleon cloak. Explore as much as you dare and then return. If you do not return in 20 minutes, then we will come looking for you." With a word, Kayla was gone, and the heavy door slowly opened. Tarek wrapped himself in his robe and slipped in, quietly closing the door behind him. Their wait seemed like forever. When Carmen could stand it no more, she reached for the door, just as the lever began to turn. Stepping back, she reached for her sword, but it was only an invisible thief. "Tarek waits for us within. It's a huge mine filled with orcs, and they have many slaves working it. I'll lead you to him. There weren't any orcs in the tunnels between us. Come." Tugging on her sleeve, he pulled her along. One by one they entered, with Leander in the rear. When they were all through, he closed the door behind him. The new passage continued south for about 20 paces and then dropped. Wide stairs were cut into sloping floor and then branched to the southwest and east. Kalor led them southwest. The natural tunnel was soon replaced with well-mined passages, supported by thick hardwood beams evenly spaced. The floor was quite level and free of debris. Kalor led them south and west toward the sounds of heavy mining, crossing several intersections. Mining carts filled with ore stood at random. Kerr examined the stone, but he had never before seen the crystal within it. "Some kind of sapphire would be my guess," he whispered. Approaching a main corridor, they paused for a moment, seeking danger. Well lit with large oil lamps, the smoke made it hard to breathe. Kalor carefully skirted away from their light, taking them instead along a mine shaft that ran parallel to it. Continuing southwest, the air became stiflingly hot, and their heat-sensitive vision could see as if it was the light of day. Tarek's huddled form crouched low behind a thick beam by an open archway. Kalor urged them to hug the wall, and Carmen quickly communicated this back along their ranks. Soon they had crept close behind Tarek, and they could all see the amazing sight before them. Beyond the door was a gigantic, encircling balcony. Inside of its ring was a vast shaft that dropped beyond sight and rose above them a light distance. Tremendous heat rose up through the vent and spilled out into the adjoining passageways. 5 doorways exited the balcony in random places, and an ornate, well-forged iron ring of about 4 feet in height protected the residents from a long fall. Looking more closely, balconies and windows were built into the walls of the chasm throughout its extent, appearing with no clear pattern of architecture. What most interested Tarek was a large group of prisoners slowly being led away by orc slavers. "They have given the lash to them 12 times, Tarek said. I believe that we can take them." "There's no telling how many more of them there are," Carmen warned. "We must remain focused on the staff." "This place is huge," he said. "It could be anywhere." "Let's follow them, and if we can help them, we will." Waiting for the last of the orcs to disappear through a far doorway, they snuck into the natural cathedral. "Unbelievable," Carmen gasped, because the magnitude of the place was beyond her wildest dreams. Peering over the edge, she could see the lava pool several miles below. Even here, so far above it, her hair was singed by its heat. Looking up, the shaft towered beyond even the sight of her helm. Pockmarked with parapets, balconies, and windows, it resembled the inside of a vast ant colony. With a gasp, she realized that they had been seen. Far above her, standing over a balcony rail, was a dark figure, armored in black mail with a winged helm and gauntleted hands. He spread his arms out wide as if he could fly, and then brought his hands swiftly together. The resounding clap echoed about the hall. Placing his hands upon the parapet before him, he smiled down at her. It was then that the orcs began beating their drums. Thrum doom, thrum doom, doom doom. "We are undone," Carmen shouted. "Fall back to the door. They have seen us." The drums continued, growing ever stronger, as more and more percussionists joined in. Their noise almost drowned out the titanic sounds made by hundreds of armored soldiers. The clang of armor, swords, and shields echoed from every doorway and every hall. "Tarek, quick! We must retreat!" The ranger led them on then, back to the northeast from whence they had come. Entering into the mines, it seemed as if they might escape, but the ceiling in front of them was rigged, and some unseen hands collapsed it, completely blocking the tunnel. "They are trying to hem us in." Leading them back, he tried another passage east, and seconds later, it too was blocked as a portion of the roof caved in. "Go back," he said. "We'll have to try the main passage." But before they made it 50 paces, it too was blocked, and not by cave-in, but rather by a legion of orcs. Stopping, they stared at one another for a few moments, both sides weighing their opponents. One of the orcs was the first to speak, and his voice was strangely eloquent. "By order of the commanding general, you are hereby urged to lay down your arms and surrender." "We will never surrender to the likes of you," Tarek said. "The commanding general has included a list of terms and generously outlined the reasons why you should surrender." "A list?" Carmen asked. "Maybe we should hear their terms," Kerr said, "before we kill them." "Speak your terms." Unrolling a small scroll, the orc emissary read the terms. "From General Vlad Lucharon, commanding. It is with great anticipation that I welcome you here as guests of the Dragonian Empire. You are all fighters, and I fully expect you all to fight to the death. I beg of you, do not throw your lives away needlessly. Surrender, and you will be treated fairly as prisoners of war. Resist, and you abandon all hope. Additionally, I urge you to consider the following reasons for your surrender. First, that you are completely surrounded by a force that outnumbers you by more than 100 to 1. "He has a point," Kerr said. "Second, that the chief of Clan Kegporter is already my honored guest. Father, Kerr exclaimed, I will kill you all. Hold him, Carmen commanded. There's no telling what they will do to Moldrin. Save your anger, Kerr. We have yet to hear all his terms. Additionally, the following individuals are already guests of the Dragonian Empire. Robin the Silver-Haired of Arundel, the Lady Lisette Anastasia of Safe Haven, the widow Isadora Greylinks, wife of Gwillem and mother of Dao, the Princess Maya Akiva, sister of Corina, the Lady Gretchen of Iconorthra, mother of the son of Odin, the Master Illusionist Uldrich Swifthands of Waysboro, and the Baron Dutchings of Nordtown. All the aforementioned guests are being treated with the greatest care and respect. Resist, and in addition to the waste of your lives, those of your loved ones shall also be sacrificed. Fight to the death, and you will be considered terrorists, and 3 generations of your families will also die. Surrender, and their lives will be spared. These are the terms. Do not let your great sacrifices end here. Signed, Vlad Lucheron, Commanding General. You have 3 minutes to consider the terms, the herald declared. They have my mother, Dao said, and mine as well, Darton replied worriedly. They have someone dear to us all, Carmen said, save for Tarek. Maybe they are bluffing, Kerr said. There is no way they could have taken my father from under the volcano. The Dark Elfar are known for their treacherous ways, Dao reasoned, but they are also known for their honor. I don't believe that they would deceive us with lies. I will never surrender to their kind, Tarek said. I would rather die. Then you will throw your life and hours away for nothing, Karina scolded. I see no victory for us here. Let us live, so that we may fight another day, and in a better field. I will have my revenge. But what of the rest of us, Dartin said. If we all die this day, our loved ones die with us, and our quest ends in failure. So you will not fight? Oh, I will gladly join you in a fight to the death, Dartrin replied, if Carmen orders it. But they are just filthy orcs. Their masters are not orcs, Carmen said. We can fight, and we will most likely die, and our families alongside of us. Or we can lay down our arms and pray that the gods give us another chance. Dead, and there is no chance. But what of our quest? Tarek argued. If we surrender, the quest is a failure. We don't know that, Kerr said. Who knows what fate awaits us? My heart begs me to fight, to the death if I must. But I cannot ask my father to join me, especially when he has no axe in his own hands. Very well, Tarek said. But I will have my revenge before this quest is through. That is my vow. Their time was up, and the heralds stood before the Orc Legion, awaiting their reply. Carmen looked to her friends, and their torment was as great as their anger. Surrender was their only choice, but their hearts were filled to the brim and begging for a fight. I stand with you, Carmen, Tarek said resolutely, as do we all. Her hands dropped first to the hilt of her sword, and they to theirs. The orcs raised their shields and readied their clubs. Then slowly, her hands went to the buckle of her weapons belt, unfastened it, and then removed it. Holding it out before her defiantly, she paused for a long while, contemplating battle or surrender. If they fought now, many would fall with them, but the war would be lost. If they surrendered, they might live to see some future victory. She had pledged to fight evil, but the lives of her family and friends were more precious still. Opening her hands, her weapons fell, and those of her party soon followed. We accept the terms, she answered. Their weapons and belongings were taken. They were blindfolded, their wrists shackled behind them, and they were led away. Their treatment was firm, but not abusive. They did not resist. The time for that had passed. They were led on for miles, it seemed, climbing higher and higher into the complex. One by one, they were placed in holding cells and chained, wrists and ankles to the walls. Only then were their blindfolds removed. Food was brought to them, and buckets of claws for their bodily needs. They remained that way for a long time before anyone but orcs came to them. That's where we'll end episode 31. At the bottom of page 405, we'll begin episode 32 on page 406. And we'll see what the fate of Carmen's Rangers might be. Thank you for reading. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, read the Duaredheim Staff Saga, with Kerr's Rage followed by the Drums of Doom. Part 2 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga, then The Last Admiral, and the Ice Moon. Have a great night.